Unfiltered. Like you're in another world, like you zoned out. You know what I'm saying?
Hello and welcome to another episode of Unfiltered. I'm your host, Georgii Speakman, and today's guest is award-winning media maven Janeé Bolden. So after a decade of running headlines for Gossip, she has continued to craft engaging stories with the likes of Newsweek, The Hollywood Reporter, Variety, across sort of all the landscapes of sort of pop culture, music, film, TV, talent, and so on. And amidst this journey in 2017, she launched her lifestyle brand, CurlMob. So welcome to the show, Janeé.
Thank you, Georgie. Good to see you.
Yeah, you too, my dear. It's crazy that I was just thinking I met you nearly a decade ago now. Do you realize that? In LA?
Yes.
Yeah, and so much has changed and happened since then, reflecting upon, where media is going in the world of Hollywood and just industry in general. But I thought I would kick off today's conversation by asking the question, how have you managed your interests and long-standing successful career in journalism with the pursuits of entrepreneurship and like launching your lifestyle brand in CurlMob?
It's definitely been a delicate balance, and I kind of am an intuitive person, so I go from my gut, and depending on what is calling me or pulling me and feels right directionally, that's where I tend to go. My career has typically I've leaned more into the media side. Curl Mob is a passion for me. And I started out merchandising with it, but merchandising isn't as
Nice.
much of a passion as content creation.
Right.
I'm in sort of a transitional stage with my work with Curl Mob, but I am a full-time entrepreneur currently. As you said, I am a contributing writer at many places,
Yeah.
and also creating content for my own platforms.
Fantastic. And then how do you balance the time and like carve out, and how do you know? Is it between X amount of hours on writing and journalism? Is it sort of like as it comes, met with just the typical struggles of an entrepreneurial life and existence and having to work through balancing all of that as well?
I think that none of it is a struggle. I don't relate to the word struggle. I
Good.
that out of keep it out of my
Congratulations.
vocabulary. I think that I have super busy days, and I have less busy days, and typically many of them start the same way, which is waking up with some water and some reflection, a little bit of time with me and the creator, talking about my gratitude. I think starting the day with
Excellent.
gratitude is the way to go. I use
Absolutely.
ChatGPT for an affirmation,
Nice.
something positive to get the day going. And my main responsibility is to my 7-year-old pit bull terrier, Fletcher. So once I get those
Shout
things out
out
of the way,
Fletch.
I can
Yeah.
handle my own needs, then I get dressed and take him for a walk. So it's another self care, walking, getting some exercise, getting some fresh air. And while I'm doing that, if I have something pressing for the day, whether that's interviews or
Mhm.
research I need to do, I have those things starting to run through my mind as I'm
Mhm.
walking. But
Mhm.
typically, I keep a schedule. I'm at the point in my life where if I didn't, I would be lost because I don't know one day from the next, like what is on my workload. And today, for example, we're having our conversation. I
Mhm.
have an appointment around 3, and then I'm working on an artist bio for
Mhm.
a singer. So
Mhm.
I'll be talking to her later, and then I have a screening later today. So
Yeah,
that's pretty
so
much my
yeah.
schedule for the day. I'm currently fasting for Ramadan, so I think that's helped my
Okay.
focus.
Yes.
Um, Although
Everything's
you might have
clean.
seen me sip water. It's my first Ramadan, so I am drinking water. I'm not fasting from water during the day
Beautiful.
just to stay
Okay. Good.
hydrated. So
Yeah.
I'm like a big balance. I'm into balance. When I was working full time, the balance went out the window. And I had to start drawing boundaries. So I think that's one thing as we learn and we grow, we learn to create boundaries and figure out what works for us and what doesn't work.
Mhm.
I think everything, what do they say? Everything in moderation. So every once in a while, if I'm working weekends and evenings, that's okay. But like, I think I have to think about what's most important to me, and it's my health and my family. And for me, my dog is my family. So he's always going to come first. I'm always going to go out of my way to make sure his needs are met. And then, you know, the needs of the household. My mother lives with me too. So I got to make sure that
Mm,
the home is taken care of, that, you know, the mortgage is paid. So that depends on how hard I'm hustling and grinding, if I have to make more money, or if I'm set. But
right.
I've been really fortunate, since I left Bossip. My community has really showed up for me. I've had more opportunities than ever. I'm busier than ever, and it feels great. You know, it lets me know that I was moving in the right way throughout my career,
Mhm,
and
mhm.
that I can kind of rest in a sense. You know, I
Right.
can rest on knowing I know what I'm doing. My peers know that I know what I'm doing, and that I'm trusted with continuing to tell stories in the community that I've worked in for 2
Mhm,
decades.
mhm. That's incredible. You've struck a few chords. I know that we're both Taurian women, so I know the importance of balance and just like the home life and taking time to lean into the day, and the self-care piece, self-love piece is really, really important. And
Yeah.
I too am a pit bull mum. I bought
Are they the
Rudy.
best? They have a bad rep, but they're the sweetest dogs ever. He's
Oh,
snoring in the corner right now.
oh, for sure. I mean, if Rudy had it his way, we'd just be cuddling on the couch, all day, every day. And he's just the biggest love muffin and the most sweetest boy. But of course, I wouldn't want to show up to my house in the middle of the night trying to break in with seeing his like backlit shadow at the top of the staircase barking and all the rest. So he's serving a
Full purpose, absolutely.
correct. Yeah, this is the guard dog that I need. But
Companion
you
protector.
Yes, yeah, totally. Beautiful. And then, we I had the conversation with Naya Chapman, who you're going to be on the panel with in the coming weeks at the Unfiltered launch event. But she leaned into the concept of like, and it's so true, and it's become more and more necessary, which is flow, not force. And
Mhm.
actually intentionally carving out more time in every day for yourself and to lean into intuition to guide the day to the best in your best way possible. That is a lot harder to do when you're on the rat wheel with more sort of 9 to 5 or 7 to 8 corporate or whatever it is. And so I hear you on finding more of that intuitive balance in your sort of like efforts of entrepreneurialism and this like new world order for yourself. Like I know that I'm way more productive myself if I meditate and do all the things and ease into the day instead of just, you on that mad
Waking up,
rush,
like jumping on. Yeah, exactly.
1000%. So tell us more about CurlMob and some of the intentions and the motivations to establish that business.
Well, it really started really naturally. I've been using social media for pretty much as long as it's been around, you know, whether it was MySpace or Facebook or whatever. And I've also been natural since I was really a teenager. But when I went to college at NYU, I started, you know, my mom used to straighten my hair when I was in high school, and I didn't have my mom with me at college. So I had to learn how to wear my hair naturally. And I was really embraced. I went to NYU, so I was living in New York, and I would walk down the street, and my hair is really thick. So it's really big when it's out. And people would stop me on the street and tell me like how beautiful my hair was. And it was very affirming. And I happened to have a group of friends, and everyone in our group of friends, over time, I feel like we all started to embrace wearing our hair natural.
Hmm. Hmm.
And some of them I'm gonna take credit for. I definitely influenced a few of my friends to wear their natural
Hey.
hair. But I would, when it was a group photo, I would always hashtag it CurlMob. So over the
Mhm,
years,
mhm,
people were
mhm,
using the hashtag, and I
mhm,
had a friend who um started to collect the domains because she was like, one day you're gonna wanna do
mhm,
something with this.
for
And
sure.
so 2017 is actually when Bossip had a TV show with WeTV,
Mhm.
and I never was like keen on the idea of doing reality TV just because it does have such a stigma. It can
Mhm.
be so negative, even though the idea behind this show was to be similar to a TMZ type show and just show how the Bossip newsroom was run. um I had the intention of like, if I'm going into this and I'm going to have a platform, then I want to have already in mind where I want my community to be. And
Mhm.
since CurlMob was something I was already using, it was really organic for me to do that. And so the other part of it was around that same time, the streetwear trend was there was a lot of images of like women, but typically it was a European woman. So I think I found I could never find shirts that had black women with natural hair on them. I was only seeing like this European standard straight hair, that kind of thing. And so I was like, what if there was more options? And I remember Zara had run one shirt, but the woman had kind of like a old she looked like she was straight out of the 1800s, and I love this shirt. I think I wore it until it had holes in it. But that was like kind of a shirt that inspired me. Like, I want to do streetwear and I want to put curly slogans on it, and I
Mhm.
want other women who wear natural hair to have items that they're proud of that they can wear. And we started out with a logo shirt. I had a logo created. I still love my logo to this day. And the sweatshirts were really popular, but I just didn't have the passion for like doing the merch thing. It
I
was
hear
like,
you. It's an
you
expensive
sell
endeavor.
it's expensive. You sell a few, you have to like put the money back into buying more
Yes.
materials. And
Yeah.
then really the bigger thing is marketing. So I did
Yeah.
find like that when I was wearing the shirts and I had them on, like I had them in my possession, like people, I could sell out of them if I was in person selling them. But trying
100%.
to sell them from like a website was much more difficult. And then I had this chain made when I created the brand thinking I'm going to, sell these chains, but it was very expensive to do real gold. And
Right.
so when people would see the price tag of the chains, they were not selling in the way that I
Mhm.
had anticipated. So I definitely got discouraged, but it also was just like, I think CurlMob is kind of an extension of me. So it's always going to be there. And I really believe in time. Sometimes you need like the timing just isn't right for certain things. So
Sure.
I think like sometimes you have to pivot, and
Yeah,
the time you might find the right timing or the right niche for what you're working on. But I do think that because merchandising isn't really my first go to and content creation is, I feel that, you know, the natural space for CurlMob to grow into is into that content creation space. But
for
my
sure.
personal branding has also become really important for me, especially as I've become a full-time entrepreneur. So right now, that's really where my focus is, and CurlMob will continue to be there. But
For sure.
for now, I have to put Janeé Bolden first, the Janeé
Yeah.
Bolden brand, and
Yeah.
just continue to see like where it makes sense for me to show up, because I'm showing up in a lot of new spaces. Like a lot of these places that I'm writing for, I had never interacted with at all. Newsweek
Mm.
is brand new, and I have really enjoyed working with them. Our head of magazines is
Awesome.
incredible. Working in a space that feels more global is really amazing, because a lot of Newsweek is headquartered in London. So, I feel like everything that I'm writing is not just for an American audience,
Right.
it's for, a European audience or a
Mhm.
global audience. And I love working for a platform that's so name recognizable, that, this magazine has stood for so much over so many years and so
Right.
many people know it. The
Yeah.
Hollywood Reporter, also hugely respected trade publication. And I'm working with Shirley Halpern directly. She's the co-editor in chief. I worked with her previously when I was freelancing for Variety,
Mhm.
and she and I have a great relationship. Having a strong woman who has excelled and achieved so much in that space is like really inspiring, and she's so supportive in terms of my ideas and what I want to do. And
That's
um
fantastic.
it's just amazing. Anytime she calls, she thinks of me, you know, around certain things, especially because um, the publication, you know, it leans towards pop and rock. So
Mhm.
my language is R&B and hip hop. And
Right,
so
right.
when she needs a voice in that space, the fact that she thinks of me is so flattering.
Mm.
But I also know that I've done the work to show up in that space
Mhm,
as well.
mhm.
I'm really excited this month being Women's History Month. I've done
Yeah.
some work with Black Enterprise on some women's History Month content, and I'm also working with OK Player on some profiles that
Real.
I'm really excited about.
Mm. That's
So
excellent.
it's a lot going on. I have a lot of irons
Yes,
in the
you do.
fire.
I love it.
Thank
Well, I mean, first of all, again, I just want to congratulate you on CurlMob. And I agree with you. It's like timing is everything. You might find an investor that wants to throw in, you know, for it to be a really great partnership that can elevate the brand in different ways. Who knows how it can continue to tie into all of the journalistic, you know, efforts that you're pursuing and involved with. But you're very, very lucky and blessed to have beautiful, thick, curly hair. I'm sure you've heard that 1,000 times before. I, when I was like 15, I think I went to the hairdressers and I was super young. I just remember being a teenager and going, "Can you please perm my hair so I can have like a big afro?" And they said, "Oh, sweetie, your hair will fall out in a hot second for you to, you know, not going to happen ever." So like I'm one of those people, yes, with the straight hair that
you.
yeah, I need to, I don't know, half the time even if I try to fucking curl it, it doesn't even stay in. So
Like I bet you if you did a straw set, it would work.
I don't even know what that is.
So it's like while your hair is wet, they would
Mhm.
wrap it around straws,
Okay.
and
Okay,
then
yeah, yeah,
they
yeah.
would sit you under a dryer. That
Yeah.
is how you could achieve the curls
Right,
that you
super.
desire.
Yeah, yeah. So I've just used a tongue thing to give me like more of that wavy
Like the waves,
situation, but
yeah.
otherwise it's straight as hell. So yes, you're very lucky in that department and blessed.
The grass
And
is always greener because people love that, you know, what do they call it? Like the glass hair or glass press, silk
no
press,
idea what that is either.
silk press.
What is that?
Well, I think the magazines are calling it glass hair, but it really is just a silk press.
I don't even know what that is either. You're gonna have to
It's like
educate me.
straight. It's very straight, like
Like glassy, like a like straight. I hear you. It's like
shiny, super
right,
shiny.
right,
That's why
right,
they
and
call it
straight.
glass hair.
God, that's crazy. Yeah, I'm not someone that typically is in the world of like beauty and reads or pays attention to all of those things, to be honest. But that sounds. I mean, that sounds about right. Okay,
Yeah,
very good. There you go. I've just learned some things today. Thank you for that.
no problem.
Um, so it's crazy how much has changed since we first met. Like Hollywood and LA was very much a different city and industry nearly a decade ago. I mean, like we're in 2025. I mean, it was almost because I was working with Rock Nation, I think, when I first met you. I just left. So I think we're close to knowing each other for a decade. And I am just keen to hear your thoughts on how much you've seen the not only the media landscape change. I know you've got going to have a lot to say on that because with there's been the ongoing explosion of social media for a long time now. That's nothing new. But it's just new tools and especially with AI, like how has the media landscape changed in your eyes? And then I feel like what's interconnected to that just because of where you've mainly been focused in terms of like your journalistic efforts with Hollywood Reporter, Variety, Newsweek, etc. Even if on the global stage, how all these things that have impacted Hollywood, like Harvey, like the Me Too movement with Harvey
Yeah,
Weinstein, and then we've had the writers' strikes. We obviously had COVID. It turned LA into an apocalyptic city. Diddy, the downfall of Diddy. The list sort of like goes on. Now the fires. It just feels like LA has continued to sort of experience its own demise. I'm so keen to hear all of your thoughts, conspiracy theories and otherwise on all of that.
I don't really have any conspiracy theories. I think like one thing that's always certain is change. I think
Mhm.
things change. There's You asked a few different questions. I think starting with the media side. So media has been experiencing a huge shift, not a positive one in my opinion.
Right. Yeah.
A few things have affected it. One has been there was a change in the Google algorithm, which so many media platforms, especially digital media, which is like really the space that I was working in most with Bossa and Global Grind. And so what happened was the way that our content was ranked has changed, and not knowing how to respond to it. I mean, I think everyone can kind of relate, because if you think about algorithms and you think about the Instagram algorithm, for example,
Mhm.
so like things that you
Mhm.
might have posted years ago,
For
now
sure.
people don't see for days
Yes.
because the way the algorithm is set up. So something similar happened with Google, which Google is the primary search engine that most people are using. They changed their algorithm. They also changed different standards. So, like, you could get dinged for having thin content, which is like content that doesn't have a lot of keywords. It's not long enough. It doesn't
Wow.
have enough citations. You're not linking back to enough places. There's so many things. And then if it's
Right.
AI created or has any AI detection picks it up, it can be ranked lower for that as well. So all of these things have created like chaos in the
Mhm.
digital media landscape. So not just for the outlets I work for, but literally all across the board. Then you have a shift in the political climate. So
Right.
we came from a place, the Obama era, that everyone said was post-racial. You know, we're in a progressive space. You see so many wins that happened in that time. So many things change in terms of like what you can say and what you can't say. And
Mhm.
but cancel culture was like also rose at an all-time high, and Me Too
Right.
happened with that. So
Mhm.
there were good things that happened, and there, are not
Mm.
so good
Mhm.
things that happen. And then with anything, you move forward and then you see a backwards reaction. So 2020, for example, the gains that were made in terms of Black Lives Matter,
Mhm.
progressiveness, um, companies embracing diversity. Now we're in a space where diversity, equity, inclusion has outright been banned by the government from its figurehead,
Mhm.
the top of the chain.
Mhm. Mhm.
So what you see in response is corporations, oh, I don't want to be, penalized by the government for welcoming diversity. Oh, we don't have to do that anymore. We're going to wipe out all of this DEI. So you see like whole companies, marketing agencies, campaigns scrapped. You know what that means for the workers who work in these industries? They're out of work. Um, that's the whole ripple effect that is when you look at the media and you see the layoffs that are happening. These are all basically, a lot of them have to do with these changes and the backlashes that are happening and the different shifts. So it's like multiple things that are happening
Right.
at the same time. Now, when you talk about Hollywood, you're in a similar position. You saw changes that happen as a result of Me Too. You saw more women making gains, but then also women are part of DEI as well. So you see a backlash to that. You also see, okay, the things are deprioritized. So the budgets that were there that were for these things are taken away. Now everything is, less profitable for everyone. Um, with the strikes, you know, obviously the strikes needed to happen. People
Mhm.
needed to be paid higher wages,
Mhm.
but we're also in a time where technology is changing. So AI is happening, but actors don't want to give up their,
No.
their likenesses. Writers don't want to give up their IP. It's just like this struggle
I know.
that's happening, and it's just in like
Yeah.
almost like a tornado.
Right.
So the strikes happened, they were necessary. We're in a place that's really not going to hold long term. Everyone who I know who has worked in the film industry is just like, it's not the same. We don't know what's
Right.
going to happen.
Yeah.
But the good news is when things like this happen, when you're pushed to a limit, breaking point, really, somebody's going to reinvent the wheel. You're going to see we're seeing it more. We're seeing small independent films, or even if you see in the last years, even I can just think in multicultural media, I have talked to so many new directors, first time directors, um, I'm thinking off the top of my head of Mark Anthony Green, who just directed Opus for A24. I'm also thinking of Ramel Ross, who did the critically acclaimed Nickel Boys.
Mm-hmm.
These are new directors, but like you see, Hollywood is not just going back to, you know, the tried and true, the people that they are familiar with. New voices are being given an opportunity out of this shift and this change. So I mean, I think it's hard for me to, I'm not psychic when it comes to this type of thing, but I can just say what I do see happening is like people are going to do it differently. We can't rely on the old studio system anymore. You're going to see more and more people going into business for themselves. You're going to see more and more smaller production companies, smaller studios, and also new ways of putting out the content, which we're already seeing. Like you see the rise in Twitch, in the streamers, you see the rise in TikTok creators. Some of this is great. Some of it is absolutely bad shit. I'm not going to excuse my French. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say that, but I do know I've had so many conversations where I just cringe because someone's saying like they're getting their news off TikTok. Some of the time it's great, especially when you look at, for example, what's happening in Gaza. A lot of the you know, traditional media is scared to touch the Israel Palestine situation, and by calling it a situation, I'm not doing justice to what's happening. There's a genocide, honestly, and it sucks to say. I have many friends on both sides. I have friends who are Israeli, I have friends who are
Right.
Palestinian, but
Same.
ethnic cleansing is a serious issue, and particularly in a culture where there's been Holocaust deniers. I don't want to say anything negative about either side because really we've all been hurt. But right now, honestly, the people of Palestine need help. So many people have died, and I'm not taking anything away from hostages or Israelis who've been hurt. We're in a situation where humanity is not what it needs to be. Humanity needs to be humane. And you see so much, like the fact that I was looking at something, it was a conservative black Republican, and he was mocking people who were upset because people were illegally deported this week. I don't know if you're aware of that, but like,
I mean, it's happening all the time
yeah,
at this
people are
juncture.
just being disappeared to El Salvador. And it's like these type of things happened in the 80s. They happened in the past. The CIA has plenty of things that they're aware of, that they know that has happened. So in some senses, we absolutely, yes, need platforms that are not going to penalize people for telling the truth. But the problem is sometimes you can't tell the truth from a lie anymore because you have, everyone's now an expert. You also have AI, which deep fakes have been created, fake photos, fake images. No one knows the truth about history. Well, I don't want to say no one, because of course historians do know historical truth. There are historical records. But when you have a president who's destroying historical records, when you have a whole party that's devoted to like censoring books and learning and knowledge, and basically has banned certain whole studies. So we're not going to do women's studies anymore. We're not going to do queer studies. We're not going to do African American studies. We're not going to do Black studies. We're not going to do African studies, because we're going to center Western European male patriarchal that has always been centered, because it got decentered for half a second and people lost their minds. Like, that's really what's happening. So, Lord, Georgie, why did you make me go down this road? I didn't intend
This
to
is
get
what we're here for, hence Unfiltered. So yeah, swear, share, say all the things, you know. Gosh. Yeah, you touched on so many
a lot.
incredible points there.
I was holding all that back.
Oh no, but that's what this is for. Like, this is exactly what, I mean, this platform is for, is to like elevate the voices of women, and just to literally hear and share in an unfiltered capacity what's going on in your
Yeah.
mind, in your world, opinion, viewpoints, all the things. So, I mean, you hit on so many incredible points. Like, I want to unpack so much of it. And I want to start by saying that you are 1000% right in saying that if one thing remains true, it's change. And
Yes.
typically, there's always a balance of scales. So, even if something feels like it's tipping in a super negative capacity, there's always got to be, because a tip back in the right direction eventually at some point. We just hope that it continues to move in that direction, because it's this concept of you don't know bad unless you know good. There's no sun unless there's a moon. There's no night without day. There's no whatever, right? And so this concept of change is true. And whilst we're seeing the negative things, hopefully a hell of a lot of positive stuff will come out of it as well. We just don't always necessarily know what that silver lining looks like. But then it also differs and varies for so many different people. Because you could argue in the political space, and I'm still on my green card, so I still can't vote, but touch wood, I hope my immigration status remains good, great, fun, and okay.
Like,
There's been the residual fear for at least 9 years, and I'm going on 12 this year, but until I got my green card, I can assure you there was always that residual stress, insecurity, and anxiety around fucking up. Is somebody going to just decide they don't like me? If I change jobs, if I do this, if I piss somebody off, if I just whatever, breathe the wrong breath, is my visa status going to be ripped out from underneath my feet? And I'm so glad to be on the other side of that, but it took like 9 years and I still don't feel 100% safe.
yeah.
So that's a whole thing. And then, you touched on the explosion or change of different paradigms, but also leaning into the old school of like what's tried and true in Hollywood. I agree there's still going to be elements of that, but I definitely see that the whole Hollywood ecosystem of once is breaking down a lot. I have a Trinidadian girlfriend that started Salel Films, and that's a platform to raise diverse filmmakers from all over the world. And so there are platforms in the world of entrepreneurship that are emerging through Techstars, ecosystems and others that are supporting, diverse voices around the world if some of these traditional systems or platforms won't necessarily support it. So shout out Salel, shout out Mika. And then, oh my God, even just the changes in platforms. You said Google, and like, how do you even stay abreast of understanding and dissecting the changes in data, ecosystems, algorithms, and understanding all of that? 'Cause it's almost like a science unto itself, and that impacts the game. And lastly is the AI piece. I'm not sure if you're aware, but I'm working full-time in AI software development, Hannibal AI. But we're on I want to say, side of the AI fence where we're solving very specific business problems. And so the only outcome of those things we're solving, at least for now, is increase in efficiencies, cutting costs. Haven't cut anyone's jobs yet, but things like, surgeons, where we've created a cutting edge like AI note taker for the orthopedic industry, but it can also be applied to neurosurgery, dermatology, or like other areas of medicine, cardiology, list goes on, where these doctors are now saving up to 10 hours out of their working week on like getting so stressed, taking these stupid notes that they're so frustrated by. So they're positive. But when you look at AI in Hollywood, per your mention, and more of that sort of commercial, entertainment-driven Gen AI space, yeah, it poses a huge risk. And if I was like a famous actor or whatever it was, I wouldn't want my image or voice or whatever taken away from me. So how do you think we are going to, or like you mentioned, you use ChatGPT for affirmation, so that's a positive tool. What is your take on AI in these, more specifically in these like landscapes such as media, talent, and how do you recommend people utilize them for good whilst they can?
I think that you don't want to fear technology. I think that's why it's important to get informed and actually like try it and figure out how to use it. And the thing about it is it's still so imperfect. So much of it is like what prompts you use. And for a lazy person, it's dangerous because you might just take whatever AI says at face value. But I think for a true, like, especially if you have experience in journalism and you understand the need to fact check, you're going to really look at, okay, well, where did you get this information from? Um, you know, I have been using AI to help me with transcription because that, like you
Mhm.
said, getting rid of the things that are time suck. So that
Right.
was, something that was taking up so much time, but I still find I have to go back through, read through because there are some inaccuracies. So I
Right.
think that's really what you have to do is just you proceed, but with care,
Mhm.
really taking the time to like question everything. Don't just accept AI at face value. Always, where did this come from? Like, what is the original source? Where did you get your where are these facts actually true? Let me
Right.
see, and I think the great thing, especially with things like ChatGPT, is it will give you sources. It will say like it came from this article and this
Mhm. Mhm.
article. Um,
Have you
but
used the deep research function in ChatGPT? Because that's an interesting one at how it pulls all the sources. So actually aggregate sources.
yeah, I think so, but I'm not sure. I just know, for example, I've asked it like specific questions, especially when it comes to like chart information, which I might not have like right at my fingertips, but I can ask like, what were this artist's biggest hits? Have they been RIAA certified? Or were they nominated for any Grammy Awards? Did they
Right.
win any Grammy Awards? Those type of things. And like it will give me usually multiple articles that it pulled from, which is great. But I definitely, there's days where I don't open ChatGPT at all unless outside of like the affirmation part of the day. And there's other days where I might spend a whole day in it, and I refuse to pay for it right now. So after a certain point, it will tell me like you can't upload any more
Right,
documents
right.
for like another
Done.
12 hours or something like that. So I'm not abusing it by any means, but
You sure?
I'm sure. I'm 100% sure. Um, but I think you just have to test it out. I think like anything, like any type of thing, like you can look at it from the distance and say like this is bad or this is good. But I
Mm,
think that until you actually go and try it for yourself, it's just like driving, for example. Like you can look at it, you can play a video game. It's just not the same unless
mhm.
you're actually behind the wheel and you
Right.
see what the actual risks associated
Yes.
are. Like you get to
Right.
see for yourself, like I have to understand weather conditions, I have to
Mhm.
understand road conditions, I have to
Mhm.
understand the speed limit, the traffic, taking all of these things into consideration. And I think that AI is similar to driving in that sense. It's like there's multiple things that are
Gotcha.
happening and going on at the same time,
Yeah.
and you have to just get in there and see it for yourself and try the different
Yes.
things and see what works for you. But there's literally, like, it's everywhere. It's in almost everything now. It's in our
Mm.
phones.
It is. No,
It is.
but how deep, we just don't know.
We don't.
Yeah. I think AI is like the concept of relativity. It's like literally yin and yang. So as I said before, like there's going to be the great useful sides, but the problematic sides. And I think it's probably just going to be a case, to your point, of like balance going forward and just taking from it to the best of your ability what works for you, knowing it's constantly evolving faster than what technology has in the last century. But just like anything in life, whether it's a relationship, a hair day, or whatever it is, driving a car, you're going to have good days and bad days.
Mhm.
So it's just the car journey is going to be beautiful and seamless, and other days you might have a fucking car accident. So touch
Yeah.
wood, no
No,
one
I was
does.
gonna
But
say, speaking of AI and cars, like, yeah, I don't think I'm ever gonna trust those self-driving vehicles. I
no.
think we've all seen the Waymo video where the car is like just spinning its
Yeah, yeah,
its
no, that scares the
well,
shit out of me. And I actually met someone many years ago. I was staying with them like a year where I was doing South by Southwest, and she was working in cybersecurity. And she mentioned that there was one time that all these autonomous vehicles were hacked, and there were like tens of dozens of them that had been hacked, and they were just seconds away from these cars just basically being driven off the road or driven to whatever. And I mean, that's just petrifying. And after hearing that story, I'm just like, that's the one risk I'm never probably going to bother
Yeah.
taking is, you
Mhm.
know. You also mentioned, you know, well, we are and we have well and truly entered a world of DIY. And so, like, all these shape shifting nature changes within the journalistic landscape. I'm curious to hear, in the spirit of DIY, what you think of journalists like Megyn Kelly, Candace Owens, and others that have got very much their own sort of outlets and shows. Granted, they've had, you know, different backgrounds, but journalistic, political backgrounds. What's your take on the likes of a Candace Owen and this style of investigative, you know, DIY type journalism?
Hmm. I mean, like, you
Mm.
couldn't have picked somebody whose politics I agree with more. Yeah, I mean, I think we have arrived at a place where independent journalism is on the rise. And I
Mm.
mean, even aside from Megyn Kelly or Candace Owen, you are seeing people creating their own platforms. I
Yeah.
know one thing, when I left Gossip, I had certain publicists were recommending that I try Substack. And that's something I'm very interested in. I haven't had the time. I'm not gonna lie to you. It's been insanely busy. I the gratitude that I feel so into band, and I'm very grateful for that. But I also, like, there's so many things that I was like, I want to go work on my book. I want to write my book. I want to
Mhm.
create a Substack. I want to build on my YouTube page. I want to write on my personal website. And
Mhm.
I just have not really had the
I know
time,
it's
because
tough,
the things that pay have been writing for other
right?
outlets primarily. And I also have been balancing some travel in there. Um so there just is never enough time in the day, but I do see those things, and I do think good for them. They have their audience. I'm not part of their audience, but I mean, there's so many people. Even if you look at Kai Cenat, who has made millions of dollars from streaming, literally just people watching him play video games. There's people on YouTube who are doing the same thing. They're just playing video games and people are watching. I'm sure even OnlyFans
I
is
was
a
just about
space
to
for
say,
that. Yeah.
oh,
So
OnlyFans, where girls are earning, I mean, multi millions a month. It's insane.
yeah.
I feel like I'm in the wrong career, wrong space. Still couldn't do it though.
But I mean, I'm sure the thing about it is just finding the formula, right? So you could
Mhm.
be on OnlyFans and you could do Unfiltered on OnlyFans, but maybe you're doing shorter bits because you have to figure out what your audience wants. Like, they might
Mhm.
not want to have, like, you know, this longer conversation. It might be like half an hour with Georgii instead of it being, or I was going to say, like, 15 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever it is. You look at YouTube shorts, people are making doing money
Right.
doing that.
Yeah.
There's live everywhere. You know, whether you're live streaming on Twitch or you're
Mm.
live streaming on YouTube
Mhm.
or even Facebook. And I mean, people are still using the old platforms too. There's still audiences there. It's like, you have to figure out who is your audience and where they are, and a lot of that is analytics. So I'm sure whatever anyone who's doing anything independently, if they want to be successful, it can't just be the creative side or the production side. It also has to be the analytical side and what makes sense with the data. So I think that's hard for me as a creative. Like, I'm always, leaning left brain, like the
Right.
right brain's being neglected, and I'm not thinking,
Right.
the first thing is not
I hear
necessarily
you.
quantitative, it's the qualitative. But at some point I have to circle back around and say, I'm seeing engagement, but I need
Mhm.
to know where it's coming from so I
Mhm.
can continue to figure out, like,
Mhm.
oh, I got great numbers when I wrote about this movie, but not such great numbers when I wrote about that one. Even for me right now, my favorite platform is LinkedIn, because I started out leaving a company, looking for a new job, and starting to, like, interact in a new way. I have a huge network. So I had to what's the fastest way for me to tell my professional network that I'm no longer in this space where they have engaged with me for 20 years, or sorry,
Incredible.
15 years.
Incredible.
LinkedIn. I went on LinkedIn, I made an announcement. I got incredible, like, thank goodness that I had the LinkedIn Professional. I just happened to be using a premium trial at the time, so I was able to see the numbers, and I had close to 10,000 impressions from one post. So I was like,
Incredible.
okay, I have the audience. People are paying
Mhm.
attention. Let me strike while the iron's hot, so everyone can see what I'm doing. Here's this article I wrote for the Hollywood Reporter. Here's this article I wrote for Newsweek. And then to see people engage, and then now finding that my network, which is something I've always valued and always leaned on, it's continuing to grow, and I'm starting to think about it in different ways because I'm speaking to new voices, and they're saying like, have you heard of this person? Have you talked about this thing? Have you considered this? And the growth that I've had is just exponential, because when you
Incredible.
get comfortable and you're doing things the same way for so long, you're
Right.
missing out on all the different ways that you could be doing it or that you could be thinking about it. So I think I just really encourage everyone to take a moment and like maybe explore a platform that they hadn't used before, because I think we're so quick to say like, oh, whatever that is, like that doesn't apply to me, or but like it might apply to you. Like just go on there and see. But their audience is all around. There's so many people. And I remember I took my niece, my cousin passed away last year.
I'm sorry, darling.
She had brain cancer. And she actually lived quite a long time for
Wow. Wow.
brain cancer. But her daughter was 17. She was graduating from high school. And I already do a lot of Disney experiences as someone on the media side, and I get to bring guests. So I brought my niece with me. I'm calling her my niece. I guess technically she's my second cousin, but my
Sure.
cousin's daughter, as her graduation gift, I said, come on this cruise with me. We went to the
Oh,
Caribbean, and my best friend came, and she brought her daughter who was also graduating from high school. So it was our dual gift to the girls,
fun.
and they're having a conversation, and the Wi-Fi was, you're on a cruise, the Wi-Fi is not working, and they're complaining about not being able to use Wi-Fi. And I'm thinking they're upset because they're not on Instagram or something. So we overhear them exchanging Instagrams, and my niece says, well, I don't really use Instagram. I'm on Discord.
Wow. Yeah, exactly.
And I think there's so many people who don't realize like the kids are not necessarily on the same platforms that we're
Right.
on. For
Yeah.
some, it is TikTok. For others, it's Discord. For
Or
others, it's
still
YouTube.
Facebook.
Well, I think Facebook might be the other demo. I think
Exactly.
that might be where our aunties and our moms,
Yeah.
grandmoms
Parents. Yeah.
are. But yeah, the kids, they're all over the place. And I've had other conversations. I had a meeting, and the young ladies that I was meeting with recommended Reddit, and I have
Mm.
used Reddit over the years, especially when I was working with Bossip. Sometimes you would get good celebrity gossip from Reddit, which might be
Yeah.
surprising from people, but
Yeah.
like when people they're on Reddit, they're giving firsthand accounts. They may have worked, you have no idea where they may have worked, but you never really know what you're going to find on these platforms unless you check it out. And I think similar to AI, like just how with AI, we have to adjust our prompts. I think with every platform, we have to like adjust what we're looking for. What are you searching? How are you searching it? You might not be searching it the right way. You might need to switch the hashtag, you might need to switch the keyword, whatever it
Right.
might be. But
Right.
I think it's an exciting time because there's so much out there, but it can be overwhelming if you let it. I think it's good to like maybe take some time and figure out, um okay, maybe this week I want to try a new,
Mhm.
platform, and then next week
Mhm.
it might be something else. But like,
Mhm.
rather than trying to dive into everything at the same time, like really take the time to like deeply explore the different platforms. But I'm sure like no matter what you're looking for or looking to do, that there is a solution for it. And I think the other thing that has been helpful to me as I'm going through this full-time entrepreneur experience is time blocking. So, really mapping out when
Oh,
do I have
yeah.
time, and how am I using my time? Because if you
Mhm.
start if you're working with the TV on, you're maybe not as productive and you can easily
Mm-hmm.
get sucked into a new show. Fortunately for me, TV is part of my job. So if I end up binging something, it might turn into a great pitch, but it's not for everybody,
Right.
But I think either way, no matter what you're doing, if you're intentional, that's always going to pay off. I think that setting intentions is another thing that's become really valuable for me.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I mean, you're so right about the social media landscape, and it has largely become the main source of media because it's not like we're out in these streets buying magazines every 5 minutes like we used to be back in
Mhm.
maybe the 90s or whatever. But to your point, it's like it's a bit of a science, but you're also having to dissect an algorithm. You're also having to trust your gut and intuition on
Yeah.
where you feel the safest, what platform makes you feel good. Like if you open X near Twitter and it makes you feel stressed versus inspired, like, how does a platform make you feel? Like you found a lot of joy and substance and usefulness out of LinkedIn, probably now, recently, more perhaps than ever before.
Yeah.
And it's really about navigating all of that. And then is it for business and or pleasure? And then what's going to be the most valuable? And I like your sort of advice or input around just continuing to explore the platforms to work out what's right or best for you, because to be on all of them effectively full time, like it's literally a full-time job and then
Yeah.
some. And so it's like having to really, you know,
And
select.
it's actually not a bad idea to kind of bring the two together, the social media and the AI, and to ask
Mm, mm,
ChatGPT, if
mm-hmm.
I'm searching this, which platform do you
Right.
recommend? And
Yeah.
then you can try it from there.
Yeah.
But I think they'll give you options, and then it's
Mm,
not usually going to be just one answer. It's going to
mm,
be multiple things, and you
right.
can try them and fit
Yeah.
them.
And that's the other great point you just made, which is like the power of AI really comes down to your own prompting, your own ability to know how to like actually ask certain questions and build specific portals against, your inquisition. That's the thing I liked is like I've got one a portal for say Hannibal AI, one for personal, which is more typically health wellness focused. And I keep feeding prompts into those specific chats, and it just keeps evolving the information accordingly, which is amazing. I just love that. But we're coming on to an hour here, and I know that we could talk for hours, but
Yeah.
I wanted to ask the one final question around what tips and tricks would you have advice for anyone looking to carve out and create a media career for themselves now and today? So obviously, yeah, like the landscape of social media is going to have to be your best friend, but how does a young aspiring media person, journalist, kick off a career today?
I think that the first thing is really figuring out what you want to write about or what you want to do your content around. And I think you can look at it at what, like, it can either be like, what do I feel most strong? Um, what is my strength? Is your strength in writing or is your strength more in talking? Because
Mm,
you can really go either route
mm,
with nowadays in media. And I think also just figuring out a few things that you feel passionately about. Writing writing every day or vlogging every day, whichever you choose as your medium. But I think that practice makes perfect. So either way you want to be doing, it's something that you're going to be doing every day. You have to figure out which, what
right.
works for you. I think also you want to start identifying like where your content can live. You
Mm,
should have your own space that it can live, where you're going to have the autonomy and you get to decide like what is goes up and what you can always bring it down when you want to, but you always want to be able to have some degree of control and being able to edit. But I think you also want to consider what are spaces where I might get paid for this work,
right. Right. Yeah, of
and
course.
figuring out and identifying who are the editors who work in that space and how can you um pitch to them. And you can always cold pitch. When you don't know the person, you can usually find an email address, whether it's on a social media platform or a lot of people will have their some type of contact me information even on their social media. But the best way is generally to get an introduction through someone else. I think LinkedIn is really set up ideally for this, where you can see your mutual connections and who might be able to introduce you. And I think that's another means of doing that. I'm trying to think back to when I first started. It was a long time ago, but I think that you will also want to look parallel. I've heard other people like Issa Rae mention that parallel networking is just as important as networking up. So think about the people that you went to school with. I know I got my start from another NYU alum named Rashawn Hall. He needed some help with his resume. I was working in a career development office in my 20s, and helped him rewrite his resume. During that conversation, I expressed an interest in entertainment journalism, and he gave me my first opportunity. It was very low paying, but I was able to
A foot
learn
in.
on
Yeah.
the job. And so I do recommend internships, taking a low paying
Yes.
opportunity, even volunteering at a place that you are interested in working, something so that people can see that you are genuine, you are actually invested, that you're not going to be flaky. I think that's one of the biggest stigmas on the current generation is just short attention span, not being reliable. So I think that's key. If you want to work, people need to know that you're reliable. And so working
1000%.
free or for very little is a great way to show that. You also can show the quality of your work in that type of space. And I would say from there, things will start to come together, because when you're making an impact, other people notice it, the competitors notice it. So
Right.
especially when you're writing, and then I would also encourage you to share everything you write. So even if you're just writing on your personal platform, you sharing it on social media may catch the eye of someone. I've hired writers for Bossip before from Twitter. Not, hey, I
Wow.
like your tweet, come write for me, but more so, hey, I like your tweet. Like, let's talk, and then getting to know the person. And then from there, let's try freelancing. You would start small. And so I think for people looking for these opportunities, look for freelance opportunities. Don't necessarily like off the gate, just expect to get a full-time job working somewhere, but freelance, intern, volunteer, all of those things are ways just to start to get your feet wet.
Yeah.
And then from there, you can start to move around, because you'll start to see there's other opportunities, or you might be working with someone and they might be doing something you can offer to pitch in and help. And I think that's another great way to like grow your network, get your feet wet in other areas, and go from there. But I think intuition is important.
It
I said
is
at the beginning, I'm
everything.
glad to be closing by saying use your intuition if something feels right. If you keep getting pulled back to the same story, if you have to be careful, because of course nowadays our devices are listening to us. So if you're always talking
Oh
about something,
yeah.
you can't be surprised when it shows up in your
Right.
algorithm. But outside of that, if you're literally just experiencing life and you're interested in something, and then you turn on the television and there's a documentary about it on, I would take that as more of a sign, like, okay, I'm supposed to write about this, or I'm supposed to talk about this. And do your research. I think that's also really key. Like, there isn't enough people who are doing the research. I think people are just very quick to just think that they can feel their way through things, but like, there's a wealth of information out there. Just because other people are talking off the top of their heads doesn't mean that you should. I think we all could be better informed and better educated, and I think that you never lose. Like, the more you actually put thought and into whatever you're trying to do, the better it shows in the end result. So those would be the main things. Network beside you, figure out like who's already doing what you want to do. Ask them, hey, can I tag along with you the next time you do this? Can I go to this screening with you? That kind of thing. Express your interest. Good people are going to always want to help you. And I think the thing is, especially people who have great opportunities, you hear people, oh, I don't want to say what I'm trying to do because someone might try to steal my idea, but you're just as likely to actually get some help if you expressed it. I think
Yes.
about after I posted about leaving Bossip, I had people who reached out and they were like, I loved your post. And I've been out of work for this amount of time. And I'm so ashamed that I was laid off and I don't want people to know. Well, if people don't know, people can't help you. So
Mhm.
you have to absolutely show what you're doing in order for people to know what you're up to, because that's how you get the conversation started and that's how you get the next opportunity.
So there has to be an element of bravery as well. And it's almost like putting ego aside to really put yourself out there to find out where the strongest connectivity points are going to be for you, no matter sort of what stage of your journey you're on. Because unless you put the feelers out there and be brave and put yourself forward, as you've just said and shared, then like, how is anyone going to know?
Right.
Yeah. That all amazing insights, gems, advice. Thank you so much, Janeé. It's been so great to see your beautiful face and catch up. And I can't wait to see you on the 12th. So if you are in Atlanta, we do have the Unfiltered launch and a panel that's obviously featuring Janeé Bolden. And we're going to dive into a few exciting topics over the duration of an hour, and there are going to be drinks and other bits and pieces, DJ goodie bags, whatever, before and after. So look out for the invitation on the Unfiltered platforms, and I thoroughly look forward to seeing you again and diving in on stage, and then also opening it up to the audience. I'm sure there's going to be lots of curious men and women that are going to want to ask you 1,000 questions.
Yay. No, I'm kidding.
Yay, great.
Thank you, Georgii.
No, but I really can't wait to see what unfolds for you in the coming weeks and months, babe. You're a star, so it's just a matter of time, and I know that you're gonna land exactly kind of where you want to be.
Thank you so much. I
Yeah.
appreciate you.
Yeah. So until next time.
Unfiltered. Like you're in another world, like you zoned out. You know what I'm saying?